All right. What's happening, fam? L.A.R. movement still moving. The book is entitled Lessons from a Non-Custodial Father. At Amazon, Kindle, and Create Space. A link will be in the description box below as usual. Go get it. This video is starting a new playlist called Conversations with Dad. So this video is going to be entitled Conversations with Dad Dealing with Heartbreak. The reason I'm coming up with this playlist actually inspired by a comment in one of my videos recently about parenting. So shout out to E.D. and Cole. When I wrote about this partially in my book too, but sometimes fathers get robbed of the opportunity to have conversations with their children because of the non-custodial part. And sometimes you wind up having conversations on the back end. And you have to, or years and years later. And it happened to me as a child. It happened to my parents. It happened to their grandparents. Not my grandparents, but you know what I'm saying. And it happens from time to time with me and my son. So, one of the things that happens is you got to deal with heartbreak in various ways. Some kids are taught to have a hard heart toward. You know what? I'm gonna start this way. Some kids love their dad, and their dad isn't a good dad. And the old saying used to go, just they gonna find out for themselves. I remember my dad said he was, he loved his dad, but his dad was, in and out, here today, gone tomorrow type of guy. And he said he was going to school on a bus, and he didn't know his dad was even in town. He heard, but he didn't know. His dad got on the bus, walked clean by him like he didn't know. Which, at the time, I guess he didn't know, right? And he went from loving dad, unconditionally to got to go back home and have a conversation with my grandmother at the time, like, yo, I'm done with this dude. So he had a heartbreak. And I know other people like this who've had dads who weren't good dads, and they had to find out for themselves and had to deal with it on their own. And, now the world has to pay, not necessarily dad. Sometimes mom pays for it, not necessarily dad. It's weird because, one thing that's universal in parenting is this this anger, this misplaced anger. You take it out on the wrong person. So, and on the flip side of that, there's a heartbreak that goes in where you were taught to hate your dad. And all of your actions, you were told, because came from a rational place, and so all of your disrespect was okay. It's okay. Like, say what you want, do what you want. It's okay. He's just evil, mean dad. And then you come to find out that you've been lied to, and now you got to deal with the heartbreak of that. Like, because you got robbed of an opportunity to actually have a good relationship with your father by your mother. And now you love a person. Now you've been trained to love a person that you realize you can't trust, and you've been trained to hate a person that you don't know how to talk to because you was out of line. So now, years go by and you got to deal with this heartbreak. And this is before you have your first crush and your first love and actual heartbreak, because what winds up happening is the parental heartbreak is the first heartbreak, and it depends on your gender. Boys deal with it differently, girls deal with it differently, and it comes off differently when dealing with the opposite sex. So now you have to deal with this heartbreak, all right? Some people try to love you through it, but you so busy being angry that you run people off. Which creates a whole nother situation. Now, the issue about it is the honesty, because a lot of times people don't want to accept the situation. Like, you don't want to accept that your perfect ideology and ideal ain't so perfect. You know, you thought dad was busy, and it wasn't that dad was busy. It was that dad don't care about you. You thought you was protecting mom, and it wasn't that you was protecting mom. You was being a attack dog. So problems come up. Now you're dealing with this heartbreak because of this. These people grow up. You grow up to be an adult, and sometimes you know you're lucky if you could get your heart broken young, and you'll be able to deal with it. You're unlucky if you wind up being an adult and you're coming into the truth, and you get your heart broken as an adult. You know, because it's harder to mend those relationships, because when you feel like you've wasted your whole childhood, or somebody has wasted your whole life on purpose, you know, just for usually silly reasons. You get your heart broken because sometimes parents have chosen drugs and alcohol over their kids. You know, I've had my own stories with that kind of stuff, where, you know, I fell out with parents because, you know, you rather kick it with me or you rather kick it with that dope. Is what it is. Same thing with alcohol. You deal with the heartbreak of, you know, maybe them choosing another person, like, you know, your father choosing a woman, or your mom choosing another man, or just choosing sex in general, like, you know, putting you on the back burner, right? And a lot of people have a hard time grasping this reality, because the dysfunction that it creates, because at some point you think it's normal. You think it's normal to put your kid on the back burner. You think it's normal to hurt your kid's feelings. And then some of us become parents and we realize, you know, how we're going to parent because of that heartbreak. Sometimes because it's normal, we pass down that dysfunction, and we break our own children's heart. And when some of us use the excuse that it happened to us, so it's not a big deal if it happened to them. Some of us are the complete opposite. Well, we're like, I'm not going to let that happen to my kid. And they just got to go through what they got to go through, you know. So you have these talks. And what I mean by that is this. You sit down and you're like, look, a lot of times what happens is you don't know your parents' story. And this is where the healing begins, because when you sit down and talk to your parents, when you learn their story, you'll learn that they're triggered by something. And because they're triggered by something, they parented out of their triggers, or they parented out of their fears, you know, or they parented, you know, out of spite in some ways, you know, which is not a good space to parent from in the first place, but it happens. And then people made mistakes that are irreversible sometimes because they were wrong. But being wrong was their norm. And some people made mistakes because they didn't want you to deal to have their same situation, so they overdid it. And it broke your heart. Because what happens is you got to deal with the heartbreak of being overly coddled and overly spoiled, because, you know, as an adult, people are not going to cater to your childishness. And this is the problem that some people are having. Like, some of us are completely out of line because you didn't have that conversation with dad to check you. Like, no, you out of line. So now dad got to have these conversations about your broken heart. Because if he don't have these conversations about, look, you can get through this. You know, I still love you. These things are out of my control. These things are my fault. Sometimes you as a child, no matter how young or how old you are, you need that closure. For your parents to say, you know, you were wrong. Or to have that conversation with your dad, like, listen, I'm going to be I'm going to be around as an adult to rectify the situation. Because sometimes, you know, all of this moving and maneuvering and posturing, literally and figuratively, strains relationships, so they can't have these conversations until, you know, they're actually adults or in a bad situation that they actually need to have some type of counseling. And all this stuff stems from a heartbreak. And you can't have this conversation sometimes because having a conversation that mends a broken heart will actually bring functionality to a person's life. And unfortunately, when you're having these conversations with dad, once you actually your heart is healed, your mind is clear enough to know who needs to stay in your life, who needs to go, even if that includes whether it's, you know, both parents or one parent. You know, people have written one parent off as an adult, like, you did too much. So these are the conversations you got to have with dad, like, because what happens is you go out into the world and you break other people's hearts because you can't. If your dad was quote unquote a deadbeat, you can't break dad's heart because he didn't care in the first place. If mom broke your heart by lying on dad, you can't break her heart because you got this unconditional love for your mother. So you go out to the world breaking other people's hearts, but you got to understand there's a karma in that too. And, you know, you got to get have that conversation amended, because if you don't, the pain you're taking out on the world is gonna come back on you sevenfold, because you wind up acting like you're getting even with the world, not knowing the world's gonna pay you back far worse. So, you know, this is video. I'm starting this new section. Bear with me, but this is where we're going with this one. We out. Uh-oh.